Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 343. Today, Amanda and I are joined by Vic Teslin, the one and only, and we discuss a whole bunch of stuff, but it's kind of a themed episode about woodworkers forced to use a lathe every now and then. And Vic's a little bit more down the turning journey than last time, and Amanda and I have been known to dabble, but sometimes you just gotta use a lathe, and what you gonna do about it, you know? I have two things to remind you about. First off, please head on over to youtube.com/shoptalklive. We will put a link in the description on YouTube, and watch the video over on the new YouTube channel, the Shop Talk Live. It's a dedicated channel for Shop Talk Live. We are going to be transitioning and posting all of the Shop Talk Live videos to that dedicated channel, but I want to get a little bit more movement over on that channel before we turn it off on Fine Woodworking's channel. But overall, I know it's a pain in the butt. I apologize, but it's going to help the show. It's going to be good for Fine Woodworking. Just do us a favor. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing the solid. Secondly, head on over to finewoodworking.com/elearning and check out Mike's Traveling Tool Chest course. It is a phenomenal course, and I'm not just saying this because Mike signs my time off requests. Mike is a phenomenal woodworker that any woodworker could learn a thing or two about processes or techniques or mindset, whatever. Every time I watch a video with Mike, whether I'm shooting one or just watching one that Jeff shot, I learn something and I sit there and I go, oh, I never thought of it that way, or I never did that. And I've watched a lot of woodworking videos. We know this. It's literally my job. So every single time I learn something, and I think every single time you'll learn something too. So head on over to finewoodworking.com/elearning and check out that course. It's phenomenal, and I think you will really find it worthwhile. All right, on with the episode. I'm pretty sure Amanda's going to hang up from this call and just go play Minecraft.
I'm going to download Minecraft after this is over.
It's super satisfying,
it's so cool.
And yeah.
I hope it's cool forever because I love it. I forgot about it, honestly.
I feel like, Amanda, you could probably go on a Minecraft bender.
Yeah. It's $10
for
Dinko
Minecraft.
And I talk about The Sims, which is now free to download. And
Okay.
I've been hesitating because I'm like, I got to woodwork at some point.
Yeah.
So, I need to leave work and go actually woodwork at some point. So I shouldn't download The Sims and I shouldn't download Minecraft, but here we are. But I should also have hobbies. So
Yes. Everybody needs hobbies.
yeah.
Everybody needs hobbies. They really do.
A hobby is important.
I think I've told you need a hobby, Amanda.
Yeah.
You were going to get into beading.
Yes. French beading. I looked it up and there's an official name for it. It's called French beading. It's beading flowers, like making flowers out of small beads and wire.
Is it 3-dimensional?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, cool.
I saw bouquets of it and I was like, I need to do this.
Wait, like 3-dimensional? Like
cool.
You're actually beading?
Yeah, like you put them in a vase, a vase.
Oh, wow.
Today I can't do words for some reason.
What was the
Guys,
what was the word
a vase
last
or a
time?
vase? I don't know. It's one
There's-
of
It's
the two.
both are
Well-
acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, but I
Bouquet.
judge you if you say it one way, and I don't judge you if you say it the other way.
Don't tell me which one, because
It's okay, Amanda.
I judge myself enough.
Pretty much everybody on this call, I'm pretty cemented on how I feel about you, and the way you say vase or vase is not
Right.
going to change that.
Okay, well, I'm going to put it out there. I say vase.
You say vase?
Yeah.
I say vase.
I knew you were going to say that. You are totally a vase guy.
Okay, how do you say Niche?
Pardon me?
How do you say Niche?
Listen, we're not going to get into this because, like, you guys say data and the rest of the world says data, and it just listen.
But niche
Just
or
charge
niche?
us the tariffs and let's move on.
But niche or niche, I can't say either confidently.
That's true.
I had a
Always-
father-in-law that said schedule,
Schedule.
Schedule.
which sounds
That's something
bougie.
John Benson would say.
Yeah,
totally.
That would be that. But so back to the great land of Canada, the one that we have totally accepted into our hearts in this household, it has become the status quo, is decal. We say decal.
Decal.
Inside this house, we say decal.
Amazing.
Wait, what?
This decals.
Instead of decal.
Oh.
In Canada,
it's like saying
insurance. So but is decal a thing?
Yeah, decal.
That's how they say it there. And it's so much more fun to say.
I've never heard that in my life.
It's so much more fun to say decal.
I love it too.
Like, can we make this a thing where everyone just starts slowly switching it to decal instead of decal? I think we've started the podcast. This is how we're starting. It's
and advertisement.
All right,
is that a thing?
All right, come on. We got to draw a line somewhere.
Blowing my mind. We could just do a whole episode on this.
Did you actually say that? Advertisement?
Advertisement?
Yeah.
Vic.
Wow.
Decal is like blowing my mind already.
I'm also single-handedly trying to bring back the word whilst.
Whilst. John Binns is with you on that one too.
Yeah. I like that word.
It's a great word.
Yeah. All right. So here's the actual. Are we actually going to start the podcast?
I guess.
I think so. I just got to figure out. I kind of want to
talk about Canadian words now. I don't know.
Right. I got to figure out how to shut the notifications off on my watch.
I'm going to close Slack. Microphone.
Do not disturb on there.
Did you just get an Apple Watch or something?
Well, I've had an Apple Watch for a while, but for some reason, I'm wearing it right now, and I typically don't when I'm doing the podcast because it's just one of the other things that makes a racket.
Oh, wow!
And so
the sacrifices you make for the pod, I appreciate that. Vic.
I'm telling you, and I mean, to be fair, the only reason I wear it is because of the health monitoring stuff. And so I've just been keeping an eye on things, and so
okay, well, good.
But normally I have all my things turned off, and yeah.
All right. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about
knitting.
Woodworking. What?
We can talk about knitting.
All of a sudden, apparently, there's a big thing about crocheting little animals.
Yes.
And that looks like something like a rabbit hole. That would be kind of interesting to get down.
My daughter does it.
She does like the little cute little animals and stuff?
Yeah, she crochets everything though. She does like I have hats, I have blankets, I have all kinds of crocheted items.
You were talking about not last time we were together, but maybe the time before that, end of year, she was going to crochet something for your shaper. Origin.
Yeah.
Oh, the cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never actually told her that. But now that...
Where are your priorities, Vic?
Well, not where they should be, clearly.
You know what, though? Last time the three of us got together, we talked about the shaper, Amanda's over-the-top shaper. What would we call that? Like stand-in? The little thing that you put in the shaper to zero the bit out or something?
Oh, yeah, the insert.
Yeah. And so I saw it in person, and it's as magical as one could dream. I mean, it's wonderfully absurd. But also, isn't Ramon making his own version now?
Ramon's making a version of it.
So if anyone was listening to that podcast episode and they're wondering where they could get their hands on something like that, Ramon is making a version of that. So
we've gotten a few questions about that. Yeah, that's a move. Ramon's has dialed in stuff. Jig.
Yeah.
Jig.
Dialed in is a good word to describe Ramon. He is dialed in.
I cannot over the top. He was doing something the other day. Oh, this was okay. I was watching his reels the other day, and he was making his domino docks, which are like I'm just like, that's like I'll never make a jig that good. I'll never be that cool and make a jig that good. But he like the ply of a veneer had broken off, and he had like he did a little fill of repair. You know what I'm talking about, Vic?
I saw it.
And even the ruler he's using to get the like little veneer has like sandpaper on it, so it just sits right. It doesn't. Gription, I think is it what
Gription,
it is?
yeah.
Yeah, he loves that word.
Yeah.
He loves that word.
And I'm like, man, that's Ramon, if you're listening to this, I aspire to be you someday, because that's when I grow up, I want to be Ramon Valdez.
But here's the thing about
that's universal.
Here's the thing about that ruler that you're talking about. So not only does it have sandpaper on it to, hold it where it needs to be held, but you can tell that he didn't just take a piece of sandpaper and go rip and stick it on there. He
I know.
Cut it and set the reveal and then placed it on. Because everything he does is precision. Yeah, it's precision, and I love it. I think it's great. I don't have that. I'm a rip and stick person.
I get it. But you're right. There was like a perfect little reveal on that ruler. And there's a reason for it too. That's what drives me crazy. Is like he'll be like, yeah, like I needed that 30-second to like do something. I don't know what it is, but
it's an offset. It's not a reveal.
Offsets, yes, thank you.
An offset sounds like there's an engineering purpose for it.
Like it's intentional.
Right.
Well, a reveal is to keep two flush things from not being perfectly flush. An offset is a decision. Is that what it is, maybe?
I think
so.
That's the difference or the distinction in my head.
I like it.
Mr. Vic Teslin from Drew.
Oh, isn't that nice?
On a recent episode, Vic mentioned using a router sled with a lathe. I'm familiar with the idea for cutting grooves, but I believe Vic said he did it to cut perfectly round cylinders. Did I hear that correctly? Can you provide more details? Could something like this also be done for turning tapers? So I cannot remember this conversation at all. I'm wondering if it's possible I wasn't there because I'm not always here now. Vic, do you remember you talking about a router sled?
I do remember.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think I was talking about it in reference to tapered octagon shaped legs, because that's what I used it for. And because the head of the lathe had the ability to be indexed, it was easy for me to work it. And so basically what I made was like a C jig, which is like that sits on the ways of the lathe and then comes up on either side of the spindle or the work that you're working on. And then when I used it for tapering, I just tilted one end. It was a little bit more prescribed than that, but essentially that's all I did. And then that allowed me to not only make the piece 8-sided, but also make it tapered. And so once I had figured that one out, then it became apparent that I could take a wooden or a square section of stock. I could put it in the same setup, and then using a dishing bit, I could turn the lathe on, and then I could run the router up and down that jig while the lathe is spinning. And then it's going to reduce the size. It's going to basically cut the corners, and then eventually, creeping down in small increments, you get a perfect cylinder. And so I've used it before. It works really, really well. It's a bit of a setup, but it works.
So you wouldn't, okay.
Is the dishing bit like I'm trying to think of is it the curved?
Like a
bowl?
It's
basically flat on the bottom with
bit.
A radius.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I thought, and I mean, this is probably overkill, but I was thinking that if it was just a regular straight bit, it might blow things out more.
Mm-hmm. No.
But I think everything's happening so fast that it probably doesn't matter.
No, that's I did, and I'll put this in show notes when I find it, but I did a Made You Look after you talked about this. And I mentioned using one of those because it's like minimal point of contact, right? So it doesn't, and Phil did this when I worked for him. We did a run of chair legs and it was the same thing. Like it's just like this minimal point of contact. Still as efficient when you're like running all of it. But yeah, that tracks. Like it did like produce less tear out and everything. So I think that's a good point.
Because the hard part about working on a lathe, as I'm discovering, is that when you're hand holding a chisel and you're moving it down the lathe, like it's not a trivial thing to have that turn out to be a perfect cylinder. You have to sort of sight past the piece and then line up your eyeballs with the ways so that you can like see where the material's coming off. You're not actually looking at the chisel. And so and it's very difficult to do because of course you're thinking about it. And so now you've got the death grip on the chisel and you're worried about it. And the worse you worry about it, the worse it gets. And then it just turns into a mess. So I thought, well, this is an easy way to sort of machine it in a way that is going to sort of guarantee results. And you can be very speaking of having trouble with words, you can be very are you kidding me?
Prescriptive?
You can prescriptive. Thank you, Ben. Where you can like say like I want this amount of material at one end, I want that amount of material at the other end, and then now you can just take a nice, and you can also do it in a stopped method as well. So if you wanted to create like a cylinder and then have it stop up to a square or a octagon, you can do that as well. So yeah, you can do a lot of interesting things by just adding one of those to your lathe.
So
does it sit, sorry, Ben, does it like sit, how do you have it set on your lathe? Like how do you mount it to your lathe?
I use two-sided tape.
Nice.
I just stuck it down. You don't put a lot of force on it, and the only force is downwards because you're holding the router down on the edges, so it's not like there's any sort of lateral force on it. I'm sure you could come up with some sort of a holding thing that would like go on the other side of the ways, and then you would use a nut of some sort to cinch it all together, but I didn't think it needed it.
I mean, again, I think like the first example that you had talked about, not something you would do for one leg, right?
No.
Something you would do for 8.
Right.
Yeah, and I did it for 4, only because so I think maybe I disagree with that statement, Ben, in the sense that even though it's a lot of setup, it guarantees the result.
Okay.
Whereas if you were to do it so anyway, I wouldn't have done it on a table saw because that's just not how I've done things. So what I would do is I would use a bandsaw and I would do it, and then I would have to clean up those tapers probably on the jointer, and then all that other stuff. So the nice thing about the router technique is it gave me exactly what I was after. It gave me a decent surface that 1 or 2 hand plane passes cleaned up. And then I knew the problem was there's 4 legs and they were exposed and they were pyramided. And so like the lengths had to be bang on, those facets needed to be bang on. I couldn't afford I have to take an extra pass with the jointer or whatever.
Meeting, so they have to be bang on in relation to one another and then in relation to the length of the leg. Yeah, so
Vic just said something that I have been searching for mentally as far as jig making.
Decal?
It guarantees the result.
Right.
Guarantees that it's going to be spot on. And that to me is worth making the jig. Is that 100%. I know that guarantees done. If you need that, that's it. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways to do it. And I mean, I and I went through, because I was a student at the time when I did that. Mm-hmm. And so I went through like making a tapering sled for a thickness planer. I went through, doing it completely manual with a bandsaw and a jointer. I thought of all the different ways. And then one of my instructors said, well, what if you make a U channel for a lathe? And I'm like, oh. Because now, not only do you have the ability to taper exactly at what angle you want, but you also know that when you rotate an eighth of a turn, you're guaranteed to get an eighth of a turn.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
Well, that is like the hidden feature in lathes. That
right.
I've seen, like, Al Breed has this antique cast iron indexing carving apparatus. Yep. It's beautiful, and he's been looking for a second one for 50 years probably.
They're hard to find.
Yeah. But if you look at that and think, oh, I would love to make, ornamental carvings like Al Breed does, A, good luck. B, your lathe might be the best way of doing that because it has those indexing features on them.
Right. Yeah, those tools are very rare, the one you are describing that Al had. And I remember when I worked at Veritas, it was a project on the board at some point to be able to have a device that basically would hold things, and then you could have it divisible by 8, by 10, by 12, and then be able to work on individual facets or a lot of people use them for fluting and reading. But I mean, a lot of people have a lathe or have access to a lathe. Although it's been my experience that more sort of entry-level lathes don't have an indexing head. And so you kind of have to be at a certain sort of middle line to get an indexable head. But
well, I think we're naturally wandering into one of the other questions.
Oh, well, did we answer the first one? I think just by the fact
something like this also be used for turning tapers? Yeah.
100% it could.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if you're doing like mid-century mod feet for a cabinet or something like that, it's like, if you're not a turner. At the time, I wasn't.
Well, and there is, let's say, 30% of the audience who's sitting there saying, just learn how to turn. And sure, there's learn how to do a lot of stuff, but
right.
If you need to knock some stuff out and
repeatable work, that's
learn how to do Italian trompe oeil marquetry. God, what's the matter with you?
Who needs hobbies, man?
We just have side quests in our current hobbies.
A side quest is a good way to say that. Side quest.
All right. Well, this question, I'll read this one and then you read the other two, Amanda. This question, continuing on from the lathe talk and the turning talk, is from Tom. I've been a woodworker for 60 years, making a living as a cabinet maker and a carpenter for most of that time. As I approach retirement, I'm thinking of purchasing a lathe. Dad had a shopsmith when I was a kid and really enjoyed turning. Having learned on a multi-purpose machine, I don't think I need to spend big bucks on a high-end tool, but I would like your advice on what to consider and what to avoid. So I want to preface this. I kind of wanted to answer this because this is 3 people who generally are woodworkers and not really turners. Although, Vic, you have been wandering down the turning side quest more than in the past. So maybe you're going to be the expert of the 3 of us, but I have opinions on this. Let me put them out there, and then, as always, Amanda and Vic can prove me wrong. I will say this. When I started looking for a lathe, I wanted to make sure that I had enough bed length to turn chair parts.
and I have not turned one chair part. And I think that whole thing seemed too much for me to take on, and I would have been better off starting with a smaller lathe, like a midi lathe or even a mini lathe, and getting the idea, like the techniques down before I worried about bed length and blah, blah, blah. Because now, thankfully, I just got Mike's old Delta, but that is in the other room disassembled. And if I need to turn, I go down to the shop and I do it there on a midi lathe. But the midi lathe has done everything I've asked of it. Most of the time I'm turning little handles for tools or something like that. And I've never turned a bowl, so I'm not sure if I would ever want to. I feel like that is a habit I don't want to have to kick later in life, bowl turning. But I think it's too easy to worry about, buying a lathe that is going to handle every possible lathe duty ever. But
it's true. Yeah, I think you're on the right track, Ben. Like you can really get locked into these like discussions about what lathe to get, what size to get, all that other stuff. But the reality is that you're not going to specialize right off the bat, right? You're going to be doing a bit of spindle turning. You're going to be doing a bit of face work, which is bowls. You're going to be doing a little bit of everything. And then oftentimes, most turners, unless they go into some sort of a production environment, are still going to remain sort of diverse, where they're going to do a little bit of spindle, a little bit of bowl. They may have preferences, right? But unless you're a production bowl turner who requires a very specific set of features on a lathe, like you don't care how long the bed is if you're a bowl turner, right? Mm-hmm. And the lathe that you need for, if all you're doing is bowl turn, you want to be able to turn outboard so that you can do larger work if you want. Like those are all considerations that are very, very specific. I was given good advice by a pretty prominent turner up here in Canada, and she said, get a good all-arounder. Don't try to do, you're not going to do columns. Don't be silly. Like that's not what you're going to do. And the more important thing to pay attention to is power, because if you buy an inexpensive lathe, they're generally underpowered. And if you're using a sharp chisel on an underpowered lathe, you'll be able, even with it sharp, you'll be able to stop the lathe, which is the most frustrating thing on the planet. I've had that happen on inexpensive lathes before. It's very frustrating. It's like, imagine a hand plane and all of a sudden it just stops cutting, and you have to like reset what you were doing in order to get it to cut again. It's a frustrating thing. And then I had picked also a couple of features that I thought would be handy, like variable speed, mainly because I'm lazy and I know I would just put the lathe on one speed and leave it there, because that's what I do on my drill press. And then having the ability to reverse the lathe is nice, because then you can sort of sand in two directions and get the fibers to lay down better or what have you. But other than that, like, I mean, as long as the power is there, I think that's the most important feature to my mind. I mean, there's all the basic stuff, like do the tailstock and the headstock like line up when you put, that's pretty handy. Otherwise, you're always turning eccentric. But I mean, there's little features of this and features of that. If he has that Shopsmith lathe and it's, got a decent motor on it, he'll be fine.
So, Amanda, as someone like me who turns once a year, what are your thoughts? Like, what are you using?
I don't turn. I barely turn. But you both said really important. The power thing's huge. But I kind of think of lathes the same way I think of bandsaws. In the aspect that I'm like, yes, get one. Get whatever you can get, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Get one so you understand it, right? And this is somebody who's like, I'm about to maybe be in a phase of my life where I need to start buying big machines. And I've told people, like, get a lathe. And you're right, Vic, like, power is, I think, the most crucial thing. Like, for me, I understand as somebody who's used a bandsaw or whatever forever, like the power is key in doing chops on veneers. Like I know what I'm going to use it for. Just get the machine and figure out what you need. You don't need to spend big bucks on something to like start to understand it. Like if I've had a friend give me a small little lathe, and when I started woodworking, I was on a lathe, and it's like you learn what you need. It's like a workbench, right? Like I'll start with a basic workbench, and then it'll evolve into whatever. But I wouldn't think about it too much. And I compare it to bandsaws because it's such a multi-use tool. There's a lot you can expand on, I guess, with any tool, really. But like, don't think too much about how much to spend up front. Like, yeah, start basic, figure out what you need. Power is a huge thing. It will limit your capabilities more than anything else, really, I think. And then evolve from there. Then you're like, oh, okay, I need to buy a better lathe.
So right, like if you get into bowl, like you turn out you really enjoy bowl turning, then yeah, pick a lathe. Then keep the other lathe. I mean, most serious turners I know have at least 5 or 6 lathes because we're all woodworkers, so we all have the same problem.
Can't stop.
But like, yeah, exactly. But I mean, you can, if you're going to go into a specialty that you really enjoy. Then, put money into a special Vic Mark bowl turning lathe that's going to set you back $1 squazillion. Right, but yeah. I mean, it's really how you want to enjoy it.
And how you use the tool is what I'm kind of getting at. Like, if you can, it's just like the whole idea of putting a router sled on a lathe. Like, there's a lot that's up to you and how you utilize a tool. There's a lot of workarounds, a lot of things, but I would just get in it at the basic level and then adjust accordingly. It's like, then you love it. Okay, invest in something a little more fancy that's customized to what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Well, I think all three of us can agree. Sorry, Ben. All three of us can agree that when you're buying a tool for the first time that maybe you don't have a lot of experience with, you never have to go to the high end, and going completely low end is also usually a mistake. So if you try to shoot like down the middle a little bit and get something that's not extravagant and, has all the bells and whistles, but something that is going to perform better than something you ordered off Amazon, let's say.
Sure. Yeah.
I think
I love that advice.
Too often woodworkers are guilty of doling out the buy your last tool first thing. Right. And for me, a lathe would be one. Like, sure, I think if you're a dedicated woodworker and like this is a part of your life, yeah, get a good chisel, or a good set of chisels or whatever, But the lathe thing to me is it's the last tool first could be a $4,000 purchase easily. Right?
Oh yeah.
If you go hog wild. But if you're just starting off in turning, I think that just get a used decent lathe that has, like you were saying, power. If you could get something that includes the chucks, because you could easily spend the price of a lathe on the accessories for your lathe, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So that Absolutely. Like it is like a table saw. You go buy the saw stop and then you buy the blade. That's 3% of the overall price of the machine, or whatever. But with a lathe, it's like the accessories could really get out of hand pretty quick. So a good affordable lathe with a decent chuck, that's a good start. And then, a bowl gouge or not even a roughing gouge. I mean, we could go nuts talking about gouges and what to get, but don't go nuts. Make sure you're going to use it. And then a lot of people will wind up like becoming turners. and forget all about the table saw in the center of their shop. But and then if that's you, then go crazy. But I think that there's a lot of people who have spent thousands of dollars on lathes, and it sits in the corner of their shop and barely gets used, and that's a dang shame. So,
I have an interesting story about that. I remember being at a woodworking show that Mark Harrell was at from Bad Axe Toolworks. He had basically just started. He had been in the business for maybe 2 years, and I was in his booth shooting the breeze with him. And he was dealing with a customer, and he was asking the customer questions. Like, the guy was trying to order a dovetail saw, and he said, okay, well, what TPI do you want? Oh, well, I don't know. I'm not really sure. Oh, okay. Well, how big of a kerf are you interested in? The kerf? Like, this guy had never owned a dovetail saw.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, listen, my biggest piece of advice to you is to go to like Lee Valley, order one of their production dovetail saws, and use it.
Mm-hmm.
And pay attention as you're learning how to saw. Do you want the saw to cut faster or slower? Would you like the kerf bigger or smaller? Would you like a more aggressive tooth pattern? He says, because right now you don't even know what you want because you don't know how a saw is meant to perform. He said, so start there and then order a custom-made bougie saw. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like value in certain things of like what Ben was saying, experiencing a tool that's like precise and set up well, sharp. And that's why I said like bandsaws and lathes kind of feel like something you could kind of experience without it being completely tuned into what you need. Power-wise, I think is good.
Can I add a caveat?
Of course, yeah.
I'm not going to name brands, but the one in my head starts with crafts, rhymes with woman, and they had a tendency of making tools that looked nothing at all like the other tools you see, the bandsaws from like the early 90s or whatever.
Okay.
My brother had one of those bandsaws, and it was just frustrating. And it's like almost, you look in and you pull up a picture of a bandsaw, and they all look the same way. And then this company went out and made one that looked totally different and to function totally different. And there's something that happens there. And somebody gave me a lathe by that company, and it was just like a single pillar. And there was no way, there wasn't two ways. So there wasn't anything for the tailstock to ride on that kept it stationary other than it tightening on this like pipe in the center. And it's like, I don't know why this company felt the need to constantly reinvent the wheel other than for money savings purposes. But when you looked at these tools, they looked nothing at all like the tools that preceded it. And yes, there are times when that is a good thing. It's something truly revolutionary. But I don't think that that's what they had. Revolutionary wasn't what they were going for, right? So, yeah.
I think reinvent the wheel is a good point, because that's kind of in the mindset I'm in. Like, it's rotating. Like, it doesn't need to be, there's no fancy stuff going on. Like, a bandsaw to me functions the same way in vein, the same way a lathe does. Like, it's simple. You can,
whether the label's Jet or Grizzly or, it's like they kind of look the same. Mm-hmm. As long as it is in good condition, it's going to function generally like the ones around it.
Should.
Yeah.
Should.
Yes.
Yeah. I think of it that way. Like, you can kind of troubleshoot. And I love a bandsaw as a first tool, right? Because you can kind of troubleshoot what's going on. But a lathe, kind of in my mind, and it might just be me, is kind of the same way. Like, I could buy a used lathe and be like pretty comfortable with like adjusting and troubleshooting what's going on.
Yeah.
Without investing too much money.
Well, I mean, when you consider that there are plenty of turners out there that have a lathe that's made out of timber and a tree branch.
Right.
So like the premise is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
All you've done now with the modern one is added a motor instead of having to pedal power it. So, I mean, when it's that simple, then yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot that can go wrong until you let engineers at it. No offense, engineers. And you start adding a bunch of bells and whistles that aren't required.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here thinking about like most woodworking machines are like motor, belt, spinny blade thing, spinny sharp thing.
Spinny thing,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so like
Spinny
table saws, they're pretty simple, but there's some mechanisms. You know, I've rebuilt a unisaw. There's some stuff to
sure.
think about there. But jointer, can you get the tables flat? That's the thing to think about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Planer though is one where like there's a lot going on. Like the moment you've got a gearbox that needs to be oiled and multiple rollers with different jobs for each roller.
Yeah.
Planer can get wildly complicated from a mechanical standpoint, but lathe, bandsaw, that's pretty simple.
It's all spinny sharp things.
Yeah.
Outside of that.
or spinny wood thing with the sharp thing applied to it.
Right.
Right. In which case it's even simpler.
Scarier.
And scary. Yeah, it can be scary.
Don't be scared.
All right, let's take a quick break.
We interrupt this episode of Shop Talk Live for a Woodworking in America 2025 alert. Woodworking in America is back. This time we're going to be at the Iowa State Fairgrounds in Des Moines, Iowa on October 10th and 11th. It's a co-branded event between Woodsmith, Popular Woodworking, and us, Fine Woodworking, and featuring woodworkers such as Shay Alexander, Beth Ireland, Alexis Dolise, Wilbur Pan, Mark Harrell, Amanda Russell. Where else are you going to hear Amanda Russell? Dave Richards, the SketchUp guru, Vic Teslin. Where else are you going to hear Vic Teslin? Gary Rogowski, Logan Whitmer, Phil Huber, and some jerk named Ben Strano. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Head on over to woodworkinginamerica.com, check out the lineup, check out the schedule. You get a tour of the Woodsmith Shop video studio. It's super fun, and we can hang out, right? So, yeah, let's do it. October 10th and 11th, Iowa. Come on. It's beautiful in Iowa in October. It's really hot in the summer, and it's really cold in the winter, but it's beautiful in October. Be there.
Tool or technique?
Segment potpourri.
Yeah. Tool or technique. I don't have anything, man.
I have one.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
Mine is a little Luthery, but I think every woodworker has been in the situation where you've got a little teeny tiny piece of wood that you need to sand or size on a sander or something.
Mm.
The StewMac, and I've done work for them. I paid full cash for this though. The StewMac nut vise. It's a little teeny tiny vise for shaping guitar nuts, but it's just a tiny vise that you can hold a piece of wood or metal in. I've used it for shaping a small piece of metal on the disc sander, and it holds it perfectly at 90 degrees. And you've got this, you're trying to shape this teeny tiny piece of whatever that could very easily go flying the moment you touch it to a disc sander. Held in this vise, it's perfectly stable, easy to operate. You're not worried about a thing going flying. The vise is generally used like on a bench for working with files and things like that. But using this little vise to hold a teeny tiny piece to then be shaped on a sander or something has been total game changer for me. The moment it snuck into my tiny brain, I've used it multiple times this last week to do that thing with. And just, if you work small pieces of wood or whatever, it doesn't have to be the StewMac one, but just a little vise. The StewMac has long jaws though. so it can hold a small piece further away from the body of it. And it's really good. Vic, what you got?
I think that's great because, I mean, really, as we're woodworking, we're either trying to stop the wood from moving or we're trying to stop the tool from moving.
Yeah.
So in your case, you want the wood to stay put so that you can apply the tool to it. In the case of table saws, there's a reason why they don't come with all-wheel drive, because chasing a table saw around whilst trying to rip is not fun. So, you know what I mean? Same thing with the fence locking on the any machine. You want it to stay put so that, you know, you can control what's going on. That's exactly what you're describing.
Yeah. And so many times when you're dealing with something too small to safely work, the answer is glue it or attach it to something bigger, right?
Right.
This vise is just a very, very temporary way of doing that.
See that?
And very, very secure. So.
Well, I mean, I even look over your left shoulder and see a ukulele sitting in a parrot jaw vise. And like, that is a very specific work holding device that allows you to hold that.
Stu Mac did send that to me as a thank you though. So I would have a hard time justifying that purchase otherwise.
No, I understand. But yeah. Whether or not it's in your snack bracket or not, the point is that the tool is designed to hold wood in a very specific way that allows you the ability to do the work you need to do on it. That's exactly what you're describing.
Yeah. Vic, you got one, right?
I do. So this is sort of like maybe technique, maybe a bit of advice. But I'm going to say stop moosing things.
What does that mean?
So does everybody know what a moose is?
The animal?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the moose, or more affectionately known as the swamp donkey. Oh my God. Well, it's one of the things we call it up north. Yeah. Because they like swampy areas. And
okay.
Anyway.
Swamp donkey.
A moose is a big, heavy, strong animal that basically just pushes its way through the bush. So it doesn't try to go around trees. It just knocks them down. Right?
Okay. And so, all right. This is making sense now. All right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So when you're woodworking, you should never be moosing it. And so this is what I'm trying to say. Woodworking, the actual techniques and the tools that you're using, you should never have to push hard. It should be very easy.
Oh, you were going somewhere with this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you're pushing a board through a table saw, you should not have to lean on that board to get it through the table saw, right? If you do have to lean hard, your blade's probably dull, or maybe the fence is not set properly, or, you know, insert sort of problem-solving lineup here. But otherwise, it should require like one finger's worth of pressure to push something through that, right? Same thing with a bandsaw. You shouldn't have to lean on a piece to get it to, even if you're resawing 12 inches of a hardwood, if you've got the right blade and it's sharp and you've got a machine that can do it, one finger. Right?
In-feed and out-feed tables.
Right?
Yep.
You've got everything that you need. When you're cutting dovetails, if you have to smash that chisel through to clean out the waste, right? Tool's probably dull, right? So the second you feel like you're moosing it, it's time to take a look at what you're doing and decide, oh yeah, I should probably change those joiner knives because the feed rollers aren't strong enough to pull the board through anymore. Right? So that's my, just stop moosing things and maintain your tools and maintain the sharpness. And you won't get injured. There's less chance.
Yeah.
I love this so much. I really do.
Thanks.
Like, and we can edit this out if we need to, hopefully not. But as somebody who learned woodworking in a certain part of Texas, my first job was involved heavy machinery at a lumberyard. And the mentality was always like, just get it, push harder, fight it. And it was like this really, and I get it to a degree, but I had this specific situation where we were using a Domino XL, and I had to call Festool. They were like, your bit's dull. Like, that's why the tolerance is not there. And then we went back and forth. My boss was like, nope, this machine should perform correctly. You need to send it to Festool and then have them fix it. And this went on for weeks. They sent it back, and he sent it with, hey, this is a sharp bit, like 2 samples. This is a sharp bit, and this is a dull bit.
Wait, when they sent it back?
Oh, yeah. Like, I was basically told to talk to this guy for weeks. Like, no, this isn't machining the way it should. We were cutting into pecan, which is like on the Jenga scale and unreal. Like, it's just a sharp thing. You should not be fighting it. Long story short, yeah, they sent it back and just like, this is what a sharp bit is, and this is what a dull bit is. It's the same, done with the same tool, Right. And that, like, always, if you're struggling through something, just buy the new bandsaw blade. Buy the new clean your table saw blade. Like, there's no reason you should be fighting. I love that so much.
Talk about stubborn. Yeah. Didn't even try a new bit. Send it off to Festool instead. That's wild to me.
An experience. Yeah. But it was just, it's one of those things, like, clean the table saw blade, buy a new bit, buy a new bandsaw blade. Like, you should not be struggling through cuts. It compromises a lot of things. Like, it compounds everything, accuracy, safety, immediately. It's like, it's a weird thing to, like, power through something for me, I guess.
Yeah.
And like, the mentality doesn't make sense. Like, you should not be struggling through a cut.
Like, there's an elegance to woodworking when you watch somebody who really knows what they're doing. Like, the first time I watched Garrett Hack work with hand tools, there was like, I was a student at the time, and I just watched, he was using a block plane, and I was like this guy can just, that thing's an extension of his hand, right? It was razor sharp. It was tuned perfectly. He knew what he was doing with it, and it was an elegant thing to watch. But then I remember Michael Fortune saying, like, talking about pilot holes, and he caught me drilling a screw into a piece of, like, I was just making a jig, drilling a screw directly through a piece of plywood instead of drilling a pilot hole first. And he said, Vic, that is so inelegant. He's like, just take a second and drill the pilot hole so you don't have this disgusting mess happening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's good advice. And from this moment on, I've always drilled a pilot hole, because it's like, yes, it doesn't take you long, but it's the difference between using an impact driver and moosing it in,
or stripping the head out. And then all of a sudden you've got this screw that's not set with the head stripped out. And even that stupid little shelf you're just trying to hang in your shop and just get it done is now like a 20-minute task because...
Don't moose it.
Because you moosed it.
I love it.
I'm going to get t-shirts made.
I think you should. That's definitely needs to happen. Love it.
Garrett Hack using a spoke shave. There's a video that's just like, it just looks like
magic.
Like a being from beyond handed him the spoke shave and all of the knowledge and skill that went with it. And it's just one with everything in the world. Oh,
I love it.
Garrett Hack.
Love that stuff.
All right. Should we answer one more question, Amanda?
Yeah. Okay. How about we do denatured alcohol? Because I know we have a good resource for this, but
it's called Ben Strano.
None other. This one's from Mark. He says, maybe I've missed any talk about the difficulty of buying denatured alcohol. It's not available it is not available in California at home improvement or paint supply stores. I drive cross country to New York twice a year, and I've checked many smaller chain and hardware stores in states with low regulation and cannot seem to find any alcohol on the shelf where the thinners are usually displayed. Any idea behind this and how to work around not finding it? Ben knows. And it should be talked about.
So, yeah, I already sent him this link, but I wrote this 3 years ago now, so or 2.5 years ago. Needs to be updated, but yeah, denatured alcohol has become pretty much impossible to find. I think I actually might have interviewed you for this piece, Vic, or emailed you to say, hey, what's it like up in Canada?
And I remember that because we talked about the fact that Canada is the same as California. Like you can get it at a specialty chemical place, but you have to have a business number and they have to prove that you're not being nefarious with it. And so, yeah, it's pretty specific.
Well, do you want to talk about specific though? One thing I found out is that you can get it in California in San Diego County. Because the Navy wanted to make sure that they would be able to get it down the road when they needed to get it. So like the regulations don't apply because there's too many shipyards in San Diego County or whatever county it is. But so anybody, like I would ask people, I emailed like a single question to a whole bunch of people. This is what I call journalistic interviewing. But yeah, in the woodworking world, it's fine. But like everybody in San Diego was like, what are you talking about? I just go to the hardware store. And anywhere else in California, you can't get it. But so it's been locked down, and I've dug to try and find out like the very, very specific reason. But it just seemed like there was emissions from industry happening. And like everything else, a lot of what happens in the world is not, your hobbyist user. It is the industries behind it that require regulation or whatever. But we're not going to get into that. And the deal is basically you can find fuel, or it is labeled, you can get camp fuel or stove fuel from boating stores, if you will. But that's really garbage denatured alcohol that is mostly wood alcohol and denaturing and just stuff that you really don't want a whole lot of. But I have found a few sources, and I will check them. Back in the day, you used to be able to get Clean Strip, and Sunnyside had pretty ethanol heavy. Ethanol is like the clean alcohol. They had ethanol heavy denatured alcohol. But since then, Clean Strip no longer sells theirs. I don't know about Sunnyside. But most people, like in California, a lot of people replied that they just go to Arizona to get it or whatever. But there is basically two main sources that you can get it. If you are able to get grain alcohol in your local liquor store, package store, whatever they're called around you, that's the place to get it. I use Graves. I buy it by the gallon, and the liquor store down the road from me thinks I have a problem. They've literally said, be careful as I was buying it. I don't know what else about me feels like makes them feel like they should warn me of what I might be intending to do with it. But another resource that a lot of people use now is culinary solvent. And it is basically 200 proof ethanol that is sold as a solvent for cooking. And there's also solvents for perfume making. I think a lot of people use culinary solvent for perfume making. It is ethanol, 200 proof ethanol. It's more expensive. It's a lot more expensive. If you go to culinarysolvent.com, you can buy it by the pint, and you're looking at They're not even showing the price. Oh, $32 for a pint. It's a lot, right?
Sorry, what's a pint?
Like a half quart, I think. A quart is going to be $43.
Vic's still like,
what's a half quart?
Doesn't make sense. Milliliters, right?
Yeah.
How many quarts or how many milliliters?
I don't know. I would have to do a quick Google search, but I get it.
In a quart. About 1,000 milliliters. So a liter. A liter.
See how easy that is?
It took a minute. All right. You know what, Vic? We get it.
We're not going to get... We've got into so many things today.
As soon as culinarysolvent.com starts dealing in milliliters, then I'll start quoting it in milliliters. But the real thing, though, is at a gallon, you're looking at $124. But Krenov School apparently buys 5-gallon jugs of culinary solvent for $320. And we did the math. It actually came out to about what you would pay back in the day for a quart of denatured alcohol. Okay. So if you find yourself using a lot, just buy bulk if you can. If you live in an area where you can go to a package store or a liquor store, and a package store is so Connecticut, I'm sorry. If you can go to a liquor store and buy Everclear or Graves, or there's another one, but grain alcohol, it's the way to do it. And it's better for everything. There's less toxicity to grain alcohol. So, it dissolves shellac better apparently, and all the good stuff. So, but we will post a link to this very long piece I wrote. And I don't say piece very often that I wrote, but I wrote a piece. Like I went nuts on this one.
Sophisticated. So, yeah. A blog.
An epic.
It really was. So there you go. What do you use for shellac, and what do you use? Shellac reducer, Vic? Do you have to buy?
No, I use. So whenever I would go to the U.S. by car, I would stop by the local Home Depot and pick up a couple of tins, and then. But also, when I lived in a different part of the country, there was a specialty chemical place that I was able to get it from. I could order it by the gallon or 5 gallons or whatever. So yeah. Okay. I don't know that liquor stores, at least in my province, I don't think I would have to check about the Graves or the Everclear, because typically we're sort of restricted to the level of alcohol that can be in our alcohol. So, because, you get drunk Canadians, which are already a problem, and then you get super drunk Canadians, that would be bad. So anyway, but it'd be interesting about the cooking solvent and things like that, because I know some people in the industry, and I'm going to put some feelers out and see how it works. I'll do an interview like Ben.
Yeah, so my part of the interview, particularly in Ontario and Quebec, are not able to buy denatured alcohol. There seems to be a few sources and loopholes, though, and we'll share them below. Okay, and that's when I went into culinary solvent. So if you are in Canada, leave a comment below. What are you doing for denatured alcohol? Mm-hmm. And this is actually something that I'm always curious about. If you are able to get it on the shelves, let us know in the comments. And if you're getting it from somewhere else, let us know. I'm just curious because I should update that piece. So
peace.
Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Again, please, if you haven't done it yet, head on over to the new YouTube channel. We'll post a link. Please head on over there and subscribe. Eventually, the Shop Talk Live episodes are not going to show up on Fine Woodworking's YouTube, and I don't want anyone to miss them. Let's just help us do the algorithm thing. We are beholden to the algorithm. We got to do the algorithm thing. We don't want to do the algorithm thing, but we got to do it. But also, while you're helping us with the algorithm thing, 5-star review on iTunes or whatever you're doing these days is awesome. Helps the show grow. and we appreciate it. Last but certainly not least, this show runs off of your emailed in questions. So please, 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 shoptalk@finewoodworking.com. Send us your questions. Tell us what you want to hear about. That is what guides the show. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks with another episode. Have a great one.
No, we're not going to do
Look at
it.
Amanda, she's done.
Because like I legit could get like this is a hostile work environment, dude. This is like
Amanda's tapping out.
I'm good.
That's lots, guys. Thank you.